What's up, everybody? My name is Mike, and I'll be your tour guide through what is definitely the worst days of an addict's life. The only upside I can honestly say is they're very, very quickly followed by the best. My first real attempt to get clean in life happened on November 19th of 2011. I was living in absolutely ramshackle shithole hotels, motels, and was absolutely penniless. My car had been taken, could barely take care of myself, and I was just done with it. And fortunately, a family member reached out and offered to have me come stay in Toledo, hundreds of miles away from my drug dealers. I thought, you know what, this might be a good choice. That's significant because up to that point, I had never had any clean time. I didn't think it was possible. I had already accepted my fate of dying a junkie. Part of the nature of addiction or being an addict is that you will inevitably lose touch and interest with things that you used to care a lot about. I was a lifelong musician. It was everything to me, but I sold my guitar without a second thought. Also sold my bandmate's guitar without a second thought. You do terrible things, and I'm not going to blame any of that shit on addiction. Those were still choices, so let's be clear. But once I finally got through it, I realized I had a lot of time on my hands. When your entire day usually consists of finding money, trying to find more money, trying to meet up with your, fucking dope dealer, and then just trying to enjoy a buzz for a few minutes before going to sleep and doing it again, you realize that once you don't have any of that, you got a lot of free time on your hands. You start to remember some of the other things that you used to do. So I got online, started being sociable, and inevitably found my way to Facebook rooms that were populated by friends and family of addicts. Throughout so many of those threads, there was a common trope, and that trope was, if you love me, you'll quit using. And it just kept hitting me at how much they didn't understand. And I'm not making excuses. None of us are fucking saints. I've done some shit. Ask my friends. But going back to the logic of you'd stop if you cared about me, it's a logical argument. I mean, it's one I'd levy against somebody else in a different situation, but that's a logical argument against an emotional issue, and that shit doesn't work. Everybody winds up hurt. But anyway, one of the first things to return to me, one of the first things that I remembered enjoying once I got clean, about a month later, was writing. I always like to write funny shit. Everybody's born with a talent. Some people are born excellent artists. Some people can sing. I'm quick with a fart joke or penis innuendo. Anyway, one of my favorite tricks, and honestly the secret to making anything funny, is being descriptive. Not overbearingly Dean Koontz descriptive, or flowery, or poetic, but just, put person A in your skin. Make them see things the way that you do, and it can go far. You can honestly move people that way. My drug of choice was heroin and other opioids, which, for those few of you who don't know or haven't watched Ray, come with mind-bendingly painful physical withdrawal symptoms and mental withdrawal symptoms, but the physical's a real bitch. But the thing that no addicts tend to tell their families or anybody outside the addict community is, when you finally do kick, one of the biggest changes is this fucking flood of emotion that comes back. Clarity, as so often in early recovery, is a double-edged sword. It can suck. You immediately remember every shitty thing you've done to every person who loves you. You feel overwhelming guilt. You'll cry at a particularly touching Facebook meme. I know, I've seen me do it. Life over and over has managed to just drill a concept into my head, and that is that familiarity breeds understanding, and understanding can go a long way to healing. And I know that sounds super hippie, touchy, frou-frou, but honest to God, what do we have at the end of the day except for the people that give a crap about us? Nothing. I'd do anything to take back the herd. So I put my pen to it. So with all of my attention and clarity, I write a short essay entitled what you ask of us and went into gritty detail what it's like to actually go through heroin withdrawal, how painful it is, how little you sleep, what's going through your mind, the anxiety, what that feels like, because it's tough to put into words, but I figured it out. When you're underwater and you're holding your breath to about the 45-second mark, when you really start to need a breath and your brain's screaming, maybe we should break the surface. It's that feeling. But for days and days, building more and more. And I just tried to find every creative way I could to put non-addicts in that headspace so that they knew when they were asking their kids or their parents or their friends or brothers or sisters to get clean, this is what you were asking of us. It's absolutely fair to ask. I'm not saying it's not, but know what you're asking. So I finished writing it and I posted it in a couple of different groups, Narcanon, Al-Anon, that kind of thing, stuff for family and friends. And it got some likes. It was a Facebook post. I'm a white guy and I don't show my boobs. I'm not going to get that much coverage. And I'm okay with that. And then probably, I don't know, it must have been probably 10, 11 months later, I get a random email or not even an email, a message on Facebook from somebody I didn't know, and it wound up being a mother. I guess it had been posted around a bunch of different groups that I didn't realize, shared around. And she was writing me to thank me for making her understand that better. And it turns out I was still emotionally raw, because by the end of it, I was crying like a bitch. Honestly, though, more than anything, I was just profoundly touched. Insert Michael Jackson joke here. Not touched that way. Touched in a less gross, more heartwarming way. I'm sorry, I'm a fucking man-child. Just let me get through this. Anyway, the bottom line was that it occurred to me that words have immense power. That's some shit so many of our teachers told us through school, and we always took as... But it's true. Like, if you can make somebody see your side, it can go a long way. It can be used for good or evil. You can manipulate, but all things considered, I'm Batman. Honestly, if I had to pick just one thing to be the downfall of the written word, it would be the inability to properly emote. Which is not to say you can't emote while writing, but punctuation, italics, bold lettering doesn't go nearly far as looking at a person describing what they're going through. And that's why I'm here today. And if there's any other addicts that happen to see this and, want to chime in, be it to say, this guy's full of shit, that's not what withdrawal's like, I bet he's not even a junkie. Cool, that's fine, go ahead. Or preferably, hey, that's pretty close to the mark. I diarrheaed almost exactly like that guy. That's cool too. The point is we're talking. We're getting the information out there. So, by all means, let me know what you think. Wow, I can always count on St. Louis to back me up. I guarantee you that was going to an overdose. It happens 6-7 times an hour. I shit you not. It's really bad right now. All right, a quick note on physiology, and yes, this will be on the test. For those of you who don't know how addiction works, think of your brain like a gigantic Chinese checkerboard. It's filled with all of these little holes, and some of the holes have marbles on them. The marbles are the heroin or the fentanyl. The holes are the receptors in your brain. And every time a marble of fentanyl hits one of the holes, it releases a flood of dopamine. Dopamine is your reward chemical. It's your, hey, pay attention to this. It's, hey, that food is good. Or, you want to go have sex because it will ensure the survival of your race. Hormone. Or put more simply, dopamine is the treat that your brain throws you when it detects what it feels is correct behavior. When you do something right. Usually we naturally get a hit of dopamine every so often, as I said before. Good food, sex, or hugging somebody that you haven't seen in a long time that you really care about. Little things, little shots of dopamine. However, as with almost everything in life, a little bit every so often is fine, but a flood is absolutely crippling. It changes the way your brain works. It rewires all of your needs, right down to when you can eat and your ability to sleep, to become dependent on this other chemical. When you remove that chemical, your brain has no choice but to absolutely fucking panic. It goes from rewarder to torturer. It's holding electrodes to your balls saying, you're gonna do what you gotta do to get more of that shit I need. It's really important at this point to understand that willpower does not come into the equation. Yes, it can help after a certain point, but willpower goes about as far as if I were to tell you, you've been eating, haven't you? We're so disgusted with you. Get out of my house. If you eat again, you don't love me. I could very easily understand how somebody could hear that argument and think that I had just blown it out of proportion or, was making it absurd or whatever, but that's really where it is in our brain. That's what it is to us when we're being told we have to stop, and god damn it, we do care. We're still human beings. We love our parents, we love our friends, we love our brothers and sisters who are begging us to quit killing ourselves, and so we try and starve ourselves over and over and over, and inevitably there is failure, as you would fail if somebody told you you had to quit eating, because your brain won't let you. And when you fail and hear, I just don't know why you can't get your shit together. Like, I'm not blaming anybody. We're the ones that started this, but that shit is crippling. And not just crippling, but it has the effect of, we do what a wounded or frightened mammal does. We retreat. We get away from it. The more you love somebody, the more you care what your mom or dad or sibling thinks, the more that shit cuts to the core every time you disappoint them. All right, moving on, and without further ado, what you've been waiting for, the shit sandwich. All right, so day one, you've decided to kick. For whatever your reasons are, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You're about to get kicked in the nuts by Mother Nature, and you're ready for it because life has sucked that much. So you don't feel all that bad initially until, depending on what drug you are on, 12 to 24 hours. You hit the 24-hour mark, you start climbing the wall. I'm talking, for those of you, and I clearly didn't do illegal things, but those of you who did cocaine, you know that feeling 30 seconds after you do it when it's no longer pleasant and it's more of like, I'm going to shove my head into an oven? That's the feeling that's crawling up your spine. You're just climbing the walls, and then you start yawning. Doesn't sound so bad, but the sneezes start. Yawning and sneezing. Then all these little chills, they'll go up and down your ribs. And any one of these things is not so bad at this point. You've got goosebumps, you can't seem to get warm, you can't sit still. And then you notice that most of you probably felt the same way I did when you saw the first commercial for restless leg syndrome. Like, wow, that's a stretch. They're gonna pull billions out of that pill. Well, honestly, the muscle pains that come along with withdrawal, you constantly have to stretch, or what Kramer called the Jimmy legs. You can't stop fidgeting. And by 24 hours, that's when the nausea starts to happen. And it's not like normal nausea, like the flu, I'm a little bit queasy, I need some soup. And pregnant women, back me up here, because I've been told I was pretty on the nose with this. You know how when you're pregnant with your kid and all of a sudden you smell everything? Your sense of smell is supercharged. There's a Mexican guy 2 blocks away who farted yesterday, and you know about it. That kind of super smell. It's like the worst superpower ever. That goes along with the nausea. It makes it really easy to throw up. But the fun part about it is you haven't eaten anything for months or years, depending upon your amount of addiction. So once you start dry heaving at 24 hours, and I do mean dry heaving, it's real easy to throw out your back. All you can get out is the most bitter, disgusting little wad of bile that tastes exactly like what it is. Like all the chemicals that are being purged from your body right now. Your body needs to purge something. You've got nothing, so it just makes you retch over and over. You have slime falling out of your nose, your eyes. Your throat is itching. You can't speak, groan, grunt. All you can do is heave and heave and heave. And believe it or not, right after that is the best part you'll have throughout your withdrawal, because it that much pain all at once causes a little endorphin rush that makes all your nerves calm down for just 10-15 minutes. But it's a break. It's a break you need badly, because nothing can handle the amount of torture that you would go through for that long without breaking. It is ceaseless. It's a gauntlet you run. And it just keeps getting worse. This brings us to 36-hour mark, and for me, by far the worst part of withdrawal, and that is complete and utter inability to sleep. The insomnia is terrible. You get that feeling in your stomach, when you were younger and you stayed up, all night, and then the next day you're like, I'm just going to stay up and go to sleep tonight. But midway through the day, it's like somebody hits you with a sack of bricks. All you want to do is lay down and sleep. It's no different when you're withdrawing, but when you lay down to go to sleep, your brain goes into hyper mode. You start replaying on this weird loop. It could be anything. It could be a line from a commercial. It could be a line from a song. It could be a scene from a movie. Just keeps playing over and over at hyperspeed in your brain. And it interweaves with these weird fever dream-like things. You're never more than superficially asleep at any point in early withdrawal. And there's going to be medical personnel who see this, I'm sure, and want to chime in and say, that's bullshit. You'll die if you don't sleep for a week. But I'm telling you, we don't sleep. There's no sleep. I have personally gone more than a week without sleep. I'm sure I nodded off for a minute or so, but as soon as that happens, you're awake again, and it is fucking agonizing. It's almost like that scene in Deadpool where he's put into that torture machine where it gives him just enough oxygen to not pass out, but not enough to where it's just constantly really painful. That's where your level of sleep is. So that's 36 hours. And if you're on just a regular opioid, not even fentanyl, just regular something like heroin, you're looking at probably another 3 or 4 days before you reach the peak of your symptoms and it starts to abate. By that point, you haven't slept in a week, and the thought of going another week and another week and another week, even if it's downhill from there, that makes it really hard. It's like Hell Week in SEAL training, but you don't have the option to ring the bell. All right, so after 36 hours, let's call it 48. And mind you, all through this, your symptoms are climbing consistently. So we have nausea, we've got constant sneezing, we've got aforementioned Mexican guy from 2 days ago farting down the block that you can smell. We've got dry heaving constantly, eyes watering. You get these shivers up your spine. You cannot get warm. Even if you could put yourself in a fucking oven. Please, for the love of God, no Holocaust jokes. You can't get warm. It's not going to happen, so you just kind of learn to deal with it. And all the while, you're writhing in agony because your muscles are actively fighting you. Hey, Butters, don't forget about the explosive diarrhea. Damn it, that's right. I almost forgot about that. That too. It's that feeling like when you need to stretch, but you don't have room to stretch. That's what it feels like in every muscle of your body all the time. So you're constantly doing that thing. And you can't see any light at the end of the tunnel, so forget about willpower and just grin and bear it, because guess what? Those chemicals that your brain's fucking deprived of right now, those are the ones that would typically get you through any other situation with a positive attitude. There is no positive attitude. It just is what it is. It's not all negative, though. Right after 48 hours, and honestly, I would be very curious to hear if other addicts had experienced this as well, but around that point to the 3-day point, I always pretty regularly had this thing happen, and I attribute it to I've been numb for a real long time. Clearly self-medicating something, and I'm not saying I had anything to medicate. I had a fantastic childhood. I have a great family. I never wanted or needed for anything. It's just how my head is wired, but I became addicted very easily. Clearly I was self-medicating for something, and now that I'm not numb, I get this flood of emotions, and it comes out of the blue. I realize I haven't felt music in years. Those of you who know me know I'm a musician. I have been my entire life. I play many instruments. It's everything to me, but at that point I realized, holy shit, I haven't been feeling music. I'll listen to a song from my childhood and it really hits you. It's like, man, I've been missing something. And honestly, it's little things like that. They're the only thing that get you through. Because nonstop torture-a-thon for the better part of a month, nobody survives that. I mean, if somebody going through this, if they have access to a gun, it is very, very likely they would commit suicide. And many do. Don't get it wrong. I might joke around and, wisecrack, but that's just another defense mechanism for me. The shit that I'm talking about is 100% serious. I have lost people I fucking love. A lot of them. I watch it happen all the time. The homeless community in the area that I was homeless, I know all of them, man. They're all people my age. And just the other day, one guy, he overdosed 3 times. He had to be Narcaned back to life. It's easy to sit there and go, well, he's a fucking idiot. He's going to die. But it would be very easy for him to look at you and say, hey, you're clogging your arteries with that cheeseburger. You're a fucking idiot. You're going to die. So maybe remove politics and judgment from it, which, to your credit, is exactly what you're doing by watching this. You're at least giving me or, any other addict a chance to plead their case, to try and understand where it's coming from. Sorry, I digress. I go off on tangents. Just one of the delightful side effects of the long-term brain damage caused by narcotics. What was I talking about? Oh, that's right. Hell on earth. I could continue going into detail, but it would get repetitive. But just take, basically what I said, extrapolate and imagine that those symptoms keep getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm talking infinitely worse than I could ever adequately describe to you. Until they finally start to abate. And slowly, real slowly, it goes away. All things must pass, all that. There's wisdom in that. But they do not pass fast enough. And I don't want to get repetitive here, so you can get the idea. My purpose here was not to put absolutely every one of you in the body of an addict, Avatar style. I just want you to understand, whoever you love, whoever you're trying to save, they're not weak, man. Like, they want it so bad. You can threaten to take away their kids. You can threaten to kick them out of the house. You can threaten their very lives. It's not going to matter. I don't know. I wish I knew what it was that finally hits us. And it sounds terribly selfish. You won't quit for your kids? That's terrible. And I'm not saying that. People quit for their kids all the time. I'm just saying that can't be the only reason. There's something that happens in your brain when you're finally fucking done. And you're finally ready, and honestly, it's the only thing that holds you up through this fucking marathon of pain. Anyway, this got more long-winded than I intended it to. If you're still with me, you have my sincere appreciation for hearing me out. I don't enjoy going into my history. I don't enjoy telling everybody about what I consider to by far be the worst thing about me. But I do believe sharing that goes a long way to making people understand, and if they can understand, then they might be able to help somebody else, because everything gets so much better. Like, I'm a very happy-go-lucky person. I enjoy making people laugh, giggle, whatever. Like, that is honest to God my real high. But not everything I put out can be funny all the time. And this was important to me. It's something I wanted to do for a long time. And the absolute bottom line is, if you're an addict, holy shit, it gets so much better. I promise. And if you're family of an addict, no one's gone until they're gone. I'm telling you. Or an easier way of saying it might be, we are all lost causes until we're not. But I appreciate your time, and for the love of God, take care of each other.